The streets of Ayilara never slept. At night, the air was thick with cigarette smoke, sweat, and the lingering scent of cheap perfume. Loud music spilled from the shacks and beer parlors lining the road, mixing with the voices of men haggling over prices like they were buying a bag of rice, not a woman's body. Girls in tight dresses stood in doorways and under flickering streetlights, waiting, watching. Some smiled seductively, others just looked tired. Bree stood in her usual spot by a rusted iron gate, staring blankly at the slow-moving traffic. She adjusted her dress not for modesty, but to cover an old scar on her thigh. Scars didn't sell well. 15 years in this life, and yet every night still felt like the first. The hesitation, the silent prayer that the night wouldn't bring a man too rough, too violent, or too familiar. She took a deep breath, inhaling the humid Lagos air. Somewhere in the distance, a baby wailed. Someone cursed loudly. The pungent smell of roasted fish and stale beer lingered in the air, mixing with the sharper stench of sweat and urine from a nearby gutter. Ayilara was alive, pulsating, feeding off the broken dreams of the women who stood here every night. A black Lexus SUV rolled to a stop in front of her, its headlights casting long shadows on the pavement. The tinted window slid down, and a deep voice called out, "How much for the night?" Priya took a slow step forward, leaning in slightly to assess the man inside. The cold blast of the car's AC hit her face, carrying the scent of expensive cologne. Then she saw his face. Her breath caught. Toby. For a second, the sounds of Ayilara faded into nothing. She was 15 again, standing barefoot outside her mother's one-room house in Ajagunle, laughing as Toby teased her about her tiny feet. He had been the boy next door, the one who always told her she was too smart for Lagos, too big for the life everyone else settled for. They had planned to leave together, to escape this city and its hunger. But life had happened. And now, a decade later, he sat in the driver's seat of a luxury car, looking at her like she was just another girl on the street. "Get in," he said. She hesitated. If she got in, it meant stepping into a space too personal, too dangerous. Would he recognize her? Would she have to explain how she had ended up here? But hesitation didn't pay bills. She slid into the passenger seat, shutting the door behind her. The SUV pulled away from Ayilara, gliding smoothly over potholes and broken dreams. Toby drove in silence for a while, his fingers drumming against the steering wheel. Lagos stretched out beyond the windshield, neon lights reflecting in the puddles on the road. "You don't look like the others," he finally said. Priya almost laughed. She had heard that before. It didn't mean anything. "You talk too much," she murmured, staring out the window. He smirked. "Maybe I just like good company." She turned to look at him, really look at him. He had changed. His once boyish face was sharper now, his jawline more defined. He looked like money, like success, everything she had once dreamed of for herself. And yet, here they were, sitting side by side, but worlds apart. "You remind me of someone I used to know," Toby said suddenly, his voice softer this time. Pree's stomach tightened. "Oh? Yeah, a girl I grew up with, smart, stubborn as hell." He chuckled. "We used to talk about leaving Lagos, making something of ourselves. But one day she just disappeared." She swallowed hard. "What happened to her?" Toby sighed, his grip tightening on the wheel. "I don't know, I heard rumors. Some said she ran away. Others said she died." He shook his head. "I just hope she's okay." Priya turned back to the window. She wanted to tell him, wanted to say, "I didn't die, Toby. I just stopped dreaming." But what would be the point? They pulled up to a luxury short-let apartment in Ikoyi, far from the noise of Ayilara. Inside, everything smelled like wealth. Polished marble floors, imported leather furniture, soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. The air felt too clean. Toby loosened his tie, watching her closely. "You seem nervous." Priya forced a smile. "I just don't usually get clients who talk this much." Toby chuckled, then reached for his wallet. He pulled out a wad of cash and placed it on the table. "Take this," he said. "You can leave if you want. I don't need anything from you tonight." She blinked, staring at the money like it was a trick. No one had ever paid her to leave before. Why? She asked. He shrugged. I don't know. Something about you doesn't feel right for this. She clenched her jaw. He didn't know what those words meant to her, how they dug into a wound she had long buried. Because once upon a time, she had been the girl who didn't belong here. Now she was just another face in Ayilara. Priya grabbed the cash and turned toward the door. Then, just before stepping out, she paused. If you ever see that girl from your past, she said, voice steady but hollow, tell her the world doesn't wait for lost souls. And then she walked out, back into the night, back into the only life she had left.